Okay, good morning, everybody. We are going to get started. My name's Tom Hasman. I'm a volunteer with the Rochester Security Summit. Welcome to this session. Just a few housekeeping details. One, please visit our sponsors. As you know, we cannot do this conference without them, so we appreciate their support. Two, please silence your phones. That's much appreciated for the speaker. And three, follow the QR code on the back for the schedule, and also please complete the surveys. There is a survey for each session, and when you complete that survey, as long as you include your name, you get an entry in for the raffle that we're doing tomorrow afternoon. There are a lot of great prizes, so you get one additional entry for every survey you do, so please keep that in mind. All right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Bruce Cheney, our speaker, so let's give it up for Bruce.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, everybody, thanks for attending this session that we're calling it Real Risk in Today's Landscape. But essentially, we're going to talk about the dark web and about some of the bad things, that are happening out in the world. What we'll do is we'll do an introduction, then we'll talk about how we got here, why this presentation, came to be. We'll talk about real risk. We'll look at the dark web. We'll talk about some cybercrime groups. We'll put a little bit of time with some nation-state adversaries. We'll talk about dark web data leaks and actually look at those. If you've heard them, their data was stolen and it was leaked to the dark web. Well, today I'll show you what that actually looks like. When you hear that, when you hear a hospital had, their data leaked, or you hear a pharmaceutical company had their data leaked, or a school district had their data leaked, what does that actually mean? What does that look like? When they say, Los Angeles schools, they leaked the evaluations of students, Title IX evaluations for students going back to like 1990, right? It's that kind of stuff, but we just hear about it. So this presentation, we're going to actually look at some of those those sites. And then we'll talk about what you can do, what are some of the things that we can do in our businesses to try to stop this type of stuff. And then we'll spend a little bit of time on the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. So my name is Bruce Cheney. Today I'm a senior sales engineer with Arctic Wolf. Been doing that for about 3.5 years now with Chandra Whitley. She's my account exec. Her and I are partnered here in upstate New York, and have had the privilege of coming here to do this presentation and speak to you guys for quite a few years now. I go back about 25 years in technology. I've got MCSEs going back to NT4, Windows 2000, being Citrix back in presentation server 4.5. I've been around for a while. I was a security consultant for New York State. I was a pen tester right before coming to work for Arctic Wolf. And I wrote courseware and exams for Microsoft way back, in the Windows 2003 Active Directory days. So I've been dealing with cybersecurity for quite a while. And after years of dealing with it, I created this presentation, right? So how did we get here? It's like, why did we get here, right? So when I was a pen tester, it was a big push, with the Department of Defense had DFARS, which is now like CMMC, right? And people had to do things. If you were, had a patent on widgets that NASA bought, or if you made gun barrels that, the Air Force bought for their jets or whatever, you had to start taking care of your cybersecurity. You had to start doing things. You had to start paying attention, right? And some of the stuff involved pen testing, right? And vulnerability scans. So, I would work with, companies all over the country that needed to have risk assessments, pen tests, vulnerability scans, those types of, know yourself, know the enemy type of an approach, right? Knowing where your weaknesses are. And when I would be done, I would get domain admin credentials in these businesses. Sometimes I would get domain admin credentials, 3 and 4 different ways, clear text passwords. And it would be because of simple things like, hey, your domain controllers are missing these patches, or you don't have these patches on. It was always patching, right? You're vulnerable because you're missing these patches, or if it was like storage is misconfigured. But it was always things that could be fixed. And a lot of times, people didn't care. They would just say, I need a letter of attestation to say that you did this work so that I can continue to do these contracts with Lockheed Martin or Bechtel or whoever. I was like, no. That's not what we're doing here. Like, I get you want to check the box, but this is what we're trying to prevent. We don't want you to get breached that they then hop supply chain up to here, and next thing you know, they're in the Department of Defense, right? That's what we're trying to prevent. And these people, and there was probably 50% of them that I would do that would have this type of an attitude. So then I created this presentation to kind of say, hey, this is what this risk looks like. If you don't pay attention and you don't take care of your stuff and you don't fix your patching and you don't update your firewalls and you don't do all this stuff, if it happens to you, this is what it's going to look like. And that stemmed this presentation probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, and just different iterations of it as the landscape changes. But it's always the same message. It's a horrible thing, and if you don't know what it looks like, we're going to see what it looks like, and hopefully it makes you go back and say, all right, I've got to do these things. These are the things that I need to do. I need to have MFA. I need to have backups. I need to have rigid patching. I need to have monitoring and alerting. I need those things because I don't want this to happen to us. So as we go back in time, just some of the notorious cybercrime attacks that have been out there, and I went through all of these, right? So Stuxnet in 2010, right? This is allegedly was Israel and the U.S. attacking Iran and kind of messing with their their nuclear centrifuges, getting them out of whack, and they kept breaking, exploding. It was one of the first times that we saw that type of an attack, right? Target data breach. This ended up being third-party supply chain. So they had, a mechanical company that was working on equipment. They had a bad account. They didn't manage the password. Somebody used that to get in there. Sony Pictures hack, right? This was allegedly the North Koreans after they put that movie, The Interview, out. And the North Korea attacked it. They stole a bunch of movies. They stole a bunch of proprietary information. And they published it. They put it out there. It was, hey, they weren't really worried about trying to get money from them. They just wanted to damage them. So here, we stole these 3 movies that are supposed to be coming out. Here they are early. Here's this information, for them. Ashley Madison was famous, right? That led to a lot of extortion. They didn't protect their customers' data, and it created all sorts of chaos from that. Uber, right? We know they just got breached here recently, right? But back in 2016, they got breached, and they tried to hide it, right? They tried to secretly pay the Russians, to delete the data and not mention it, right? And then it finally got out, and it cost them all sorts of money in fines. Sandworm attack on Maersk in 2017. Sandworm, ties to Russian state, to the nation-state adversary Russia. These guys have been around. They've resurfaced recently, but they did the Seoul Olympics. They attacked. They did the Ukraine power grid probably in 2016. But in 2017, they basically encrypted 45,000 machines at Maersk, and it ended up not even being encryption. It was just a wiper. So they just wiped out 45,000 machines and left all of these hundreds and hundreds of ships with shipping containers without any idea, while they rebuilt their network over 90 days from backups to try to get everything back up and running. WannaCry. So when this thing, and Pecha and not Pecha were around, this was kind of like the first time that we were seeing the bad guys asking for money, where it was starting to just target everybody. So I was working as a consultant at the Attorney General at the time, and this was coming in PDF files, and we would get it like every other day. We'd have a machine that would get locked up, and it would go out to their home directory, their H drive, and they had a bureau drive, and it would encrypt all of it, and we would just restore from backup from the night before, and just business as usual. And it was just kind of a normal way of doing business until we figured out how to, stop them. Oh, they can't have PDF files, and, which then became political and all this other stuff. But that was, we started seeing that all over the place affecting businesses, where they then wanted the Bitcoin, and they wanted to give them, keys to decrypt it. Equifax data breach was a back-end problem like Capital One, just misconfigurations. But, millions and millions and millions of records, which are social security numbers and those types of things, being taken and published, right, as just a straight data leak. Not even necessarily ransomware, but just, hey, we have stolen all of this information, and here it is for everybody to see. Okay. And then Colonial Pipeline, right, which we saw, that a couple of years now. But that affected a lot of things going into the holiday weekend. The gas was shut down, right? It was just a nuisance. At the same time, that same group was doing the JBS, the hot dog company was getting hit, right? It was just a nuisance, right, by that dark side group. Okay? Just in the past year, things that we saw, more from a vulnerability standpoint, but that move it, the SQL injection vulnerability. The Clop cyber group used that thing to hit more than 500 US businesses and steal their data. Now, in some cases, it was nonsense. Well, data was worthless, nothing of value. And in some cases, it was, personal information, private information that shouldn't have been stolen. Go Anywhere had a remote code execution last year. Citrix got hit. Microsoft, Outlook Elevation, Cisco again, 40OS. Right, they all had problems last year. They all had vulnerabilities, and the solution for all of them was updating, right? But then that involves change control, being aware that this even happened, knowing that Fortinet had these problems, or knowing Cisco had these problems, or knowing Microsoft or Palo, whoever the flavor of the day is, whoever the bad guys are deciding they're going to try to reverse engineer, figure out, and start exploiting. So we have to be on top of that stuff and know that this is such a wide variety of products, right? That they're hitting everything and anything that they can, to try to get us, to try to get our money. So what's the real risk actually look like, right? And it makes sense before we start talking about what the real risk is just to talk about, defining it. What does it really mean? And, when we think of the NIST and the way that they define it, it's the CIA triad, right? We've all heard about the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Being able to protect our assets, the confidentiality of them, the integrity of them, and the availability of them, right? So I need to make sure things are up and running. If I get hit with ransomware, we're down. We're not running anymore, okay? We're no longer available, right? And if we're processing information, if we're processing bank, statements, or whatever we're doing, we're not doing it. Maersk was not shipping because they were down. Those boats were stuck out in the Atlantic Ocean trying to get into the port of Jersey, and they were stuck. Thousands and thousands like that ship that crashed into the bridge in Delaware. Those boats, hundreds of them out stuck with not a clue as to what is in that container. Could have been bicycles, it could have been sinks, it could have been shower heads. Who knows what it was? It was all gone, and they had to rebuild it, right? So it just made, open that realization, like, whoa, this is a big, big problem. And that was, millions and millions of dollars in damage, right? Confidentiality, when people steal your information and leak it, right? That's kind of a violation of that, that leg of this. And the integrity, right? If things are changing, if permissions, in your mailbox is up in Google Workspace or in Office 365, if somebody's changing those permissions, and you're not aware of it, right? And they're setting up forwarding rules, or they're deleting. It's a business email compromise, right? That's integrity. Those are things changing, right? So we can look at it from, availability, doing backups and redundant, WAN connections and redundant firewalls, and, integrity. We can have digital signatures and certificates and all of those things, right? And confidentiality. We can do permissions and access control and all the different things to try to protect that stuff. But it's a battle, right? And that's what we have to do. And then we talk about non-repudiation, right? Also being able to prove something happened, right? So at a bank transaction, maybe before I transfer money, they send me a text and I have to put the PIN in. Now they know what my cat did. I can't just say my cat hit the keyboard and did this transfer, right? So, well, your cat didn't log onto your phone and get the code and type that in. So it takes the ability to say that didn't happen away. Now, not spending a ton of time on this, but it's worth talking about AI and how this is affecting us and what it's doing. Now, we can think of this in a few different ways, right? We can use it from a defense standpoint, looking for anomalies and analyzing large amounts of network flow and large amounts of traffic for patterns or user behavior and all that stuff, right? And we worry that our businesses, that our employees are going to upload our stuff, and our company information up into ChatGPT, where it becomes public, domain now, right? We're worried about that stuff, right? But it's worth understanding how the bad guys are using this today and what the effect is. It gives them the ability to really create anything that they want in real time. So if they decide that they want to send a phishing campaign out for, Bank of America trying to get credentials, they can use AI to spin up a website that looks just like Bank of America. They can use AI to create phishing emails that have perfect, English and perfect grammar that they can send out. They can use AI to build a database on the back end to store those credentials, right? They can use AI to create all of that, and very, very quickly. So before, when they would need a developer and they'd have to have somebody that could create the Bank of America website that looks like Bank of America and spend the time coding it, spend the time making it work, so when they click the login button, it looks like that and going through. Now they can just clone that stuff in literally seconds with tools like ChatGPT. So that just means for us, we have to, heighten our guard, right? We have to short things up. And just be aware that, identifying phishing emails and things like that might be more difficult, and understanding users are probably going to be more prone to click on things as we move forward. And it's going to be important for us to be able to see and detect what happens after that and understand the process if those credentials are stolen, right? So we can't really address risk without, thinking about AI today. So what are the real risks, right? If something happens, the bad actors get in. Business email compromise, this is, the unacknowledged, unyielding threat to all global organizations. This can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Somebody gets into a mailbox, they're monitoring it, they're deleting emails out of it, they're hiding in it, and eventually they're changing ACH numbers, transactions, they're sending different invoices, different routings, right, and just stealing information, okay? Stealing money with these wire transfers, right? So it is a big problem and a big risk out there. Of course, ransomware, but when we just get hit with ransomware, we just recover from backups, right? We have good backups, we get hit with ransomware, we don't have to pay them because we can restore from backup. And, in some cases, we at least had a daily backup, but maybe we have more than one backup, or maybe we have some shadow copies somewhere. It might be, less than a day. So then the bad guy said, okay, you don't want to pay us? We'll delete it. We'll hit you with ransomware, and then we'll go and we'll delete your backups. So now you're going to have to pay us. So then we started doing immutable backups and offsite backups and cloud-based backups and all these other things to protect it. So the bad guy said, fine, you want to do that so we can't delete it? And now we're going to steal your data. We're going to hit you with ransomware, and if you don't want to pay us, now we're going to leak your data to the world. So whatever you have, whatever trade secrets, proprietary information, whatever it is, we're going to leak it out there. You don't want to, and we don't care. We have no morals about this stuff. Whatever your data is, we're going to find the worst of it, and we're going to leak that to let you know that we have that, that information. Okay? And then sometimes people wouldn't care, right? They'd say, hey, you know what? That's fine. Our data's like the guy, and it blows my mind, the Los Angeles school districts. When they said, hey, we're going to leak the data, and the guy says, yeah, our data's not valuable. It's nothing. Let them leak it, right? And then they leaked all of those student eval and psych eval, things going back till 1989 or 1990 when they first started storing electronic records, right? So there was like, oh, I guess this is important data, right? Talk about his foot in his mouth. So, some people don't care. They're just, what? Tough. We're not, leak the data, doesn't matter. So then they started doing triple extortion, right? Which is more, I think, of a double extortion, but they call it triple. But now as they're going through the email, and they're going through your messages, and they're going through your data and everything, and they see that, whoa, so you're a chip company, and you do business with Apple, and you have the plans for new motherboards for Apple that, you're going to be creating. So let's go and tell Apple, hey, we stole their data, but it's actually your data, and we're going to leak that unless you pay us. And I actually saw that and wish I took a screenshot of it, but I was out just meandering on the dark web and came across, it was a chip company in South Korea. They had got hit by one of these cybercrime groups. Their data was stolen, and they leaked, and they said, we have all of Apple's data. We have these plans for iPhones and for MacBook Pros, and it was schematics and wiring diagrams and all this stuff. And they posted, maybe like 4 or 5 pictures. And I was like, look at this. Oh, man, these guys got hit, and they're trying to extort Apple. And I went back the next day, and it was gone. just gone. Like it never happened, never. And I'm like, they paid. Apple paid them, right? Because the other company was like, we don't care. You leak whatever, we're not paying you. They were just a small shop making these little chips, widgets, whatever it was, but it disappeared. And I looked at it. I could have taken a picture, could have probably broke the story, right? Not that I break stories, but unbelievable. But yeah, so they paid. But that's a triple extortion. So it's like we have your data that we stole, right? And that's this whole supply chain stuff that we really have to pay attention to today. Then SEC reporting, right? There's rules that say you have 4 days if you have some type of a breach, and if they identify as like a major breach, a material breach, did the breach have enough material to warrant the need to report? And basically, if it's financial information, personal information, things like that, they have to report. So if you don't want to report, well, the bad guys will report for you, and they'll, to kind of move the ball here, they'll just say, hey, we're going to do this. And sometimes they're harassing employees and investor notification. Now, employee harassment, I got a couple of pictures of emails that were sent, but the bad guys are calling people. They're calling employees, and they're threatening them. They're telling them they're going to leak data that they stole from the business that you're working at. It's your personal information, right? When we all got hired and we gave them our driver's license and our social security cards and all that good stuff, right? And they took all that, right? Now the bad guys have it, and they're telling me we have it, and we're just going to leak it out to the world, and whoever wants it can have it, and you better, monitor for identity theft, right, is what it comes down to, right? And then notifying investors, right? So, doing anything they can to get paid, right? So this is an email. This was like employee harassment, right? But this is the bad guys. So this was a company in New Hampshire. They're just saying, hey, we took your data, and your boss doesn't care about you, and he only cares about himself and all this other stuff. And go tell him to pay, or we're going to have a problem here, right? And then this is a different one. And this one I left the .onion.dog. .dog is like a .com out there that's just routable, so you can go there. The bad guys want you as the employee to click on that and go see your stuff, right? So when you click on this, they're going to link you to some pictures of the data that they have, letting you know we're not bluffing. We're emailing you this. There's no bluff here. We have your information. We want you to pay us. Your boss doesn't want to, so unfortunately, you're going to have a bad time. Right, this was the Alpha V Black Cat group with their SEC reporting. So they Meridian Link, they hit them with, they stole their data, they hit them with ransomware. And when Meridian Link didn't want to get back to them in a timely fashion, they went and filed with the SEC. They took a picture and published it to let everybody know that they were doing this, because it was kind of like the first time somebody did this. But just wild. Right? Like, what are these guys doing? They're doing anything they can. They don't care. They just want to get paid. Okay? All right. So, any questions? All right. Let's talk about the dark web now. Okay. So, what is the dark web? Right? So, when we have the internet out there, what we deal with, the surface web, is only 4% of it. That's it. That's all your Google, your Microsoft, your ESPN. Whatever, all that stuff that we can get to, that's the surface web, 4%, okay? The rest of it, 96%, is this deep web, right? And the deep web is unindexed pages, okay? Things out, government resources, financial, academia, okay? It's out there if you know how to get there, if you know the address, if you know the name, if you know the IP address or whatever, you can get there and authenticate and access it, right? It's just not, you're not going to find it in Google. It's either programmatically told not to, or you tell Google, don't index this. So this stuff's not indexed, it's not searchable. And inside of that deep web, there's this little piece, this dark web, that is an encrypted area that requires you to gain access to it through what's called the Tor network, okay? So, and we'll look at the Tor web in a second, and how that works. But basically, it's this unindexed area, but now it's all encrypted, and it becomes anonymous and conceptually untraceable, which we know is not the case at all. But what are they doing down there? What's on the dark web? Why are they? And we know the data leaks are there, and there's other stuff that we've heard of, with the dark web. But all of our marketplaces are down there. Your extortion sites, which is what we're going to be looking at. Things like Telegram are running down there where the bad guys might be communicating, talking about leaks, talking about breaches, recruiting, other hackers and whatnot. And then, of course, leaking the information. The data marketplaces where they're selling all of the credentials, personal information, financial data. You want credit cards loaded with $1,000 on them. It's all whatever, it's there, and it's Bitcoin and Monero, those types of payments. There's the dark marketplaces, with the drugs, the weapons, hitmen for hire, things like that. The cybercrime tools, right? Come here and download a virus, download some ransomware to put on your buddy's computer, or whatever you want to do with that. But yeah, you can hire hackers down there, right? All the recruitment sites. As I was poking around, updating this presentation over the weekend, I got into one of these sites, and it's like, there's just people for hire. They're just like, hey, I'm just a hacker, and let me know. You give me $50, and I'll just break in whoever you want. Let me know, And it's just like, who knows who they are, right? Bet they're young, right? And probably overseas. But then you see the kid from Uber is arrested. He's 16 years old. He's arrested in Florida. So, you never know where they are or what they're actually doing. Okay? So how do you get there? So this Tor network sits between the deep web and the dark web, right? So the dark web is just a piece of the deep web, but it's all encrypted down there. So when you're on the surface web or whatever, you're doing your thing, you might go to the deep web for your job or whatever, but when you want to get down into the dark web, you have to use a piece of software, right? A gateway to get in. That's called the Tor software, right? The Tor client. So when you get the Tor client on your workstation, it's like a series of proxies, a series of VPNs. So with the Tor software, as long as I know an address where I'm trying to go, and they're going to end in .onion, it connects to an entry guard randomly, changes the next connection. Then you pop through 3 relay nodes, completely anonymous, right? Each time you hit, more encryption gets peeled off. That's why they call it the onion router. So it's each time, each hop, another piece of encryption is pulled off. And then when you get to the exit node, it just goes to the web server as just plain text traffic, HTTPS, or whatever. It's not encrypted with Tor anymore. But all of those hops in the middle are all, conceptually undetected. Now, sure, the exit node, could sniff all the traffic on the way out, can monitor it, can see where it's going, can do it, but they don't know where it came from. They just know the machine before it, but that's it, right? It doesn't know anything about any of the other machines and any of the IP addresses or anything like that. Okay? So it's an anonymizing network, and there's a lot of really horrible things that sit down there that you have to use these types of tools to be able to access. Okay? All right, so let's talk about some cybercrime groups. And then we'll get into data leaks a little bit. But it's worth, just kind of understanding, what these guys are doing. But before we talk about that, nation-state adversaries, and we have to just spend a second talking about these guys. And there's really 4 of them. The first one is China, People's Republic of China. They are attacking us daily. They're looking not necessarily for ransomware and those types of things, right? They want data. They want infrastructure information. They want that. They don't care. They want military secrets, right? So they're a big problem, right? And then in addition to them, of course, Russia, right? So these guys, they're after everything. They want money for the most part, but they are, they'll take whatever they can get, right? So these guys are full-blown ransomware. From Russia perspective, there's a lot of cybercrime groups that are tied into these guys. So, Russia itself is, looking for military secrets and things like that. But then to get the protection of the Russian government, the bad guys are giving them kickbacks, right? Let's call it what it is. They're saying, hey, don't let somebody come in and arrest us and extradite us or whatever. And here, every million we get, we'll give you a little bit of it, okay? Iran, right? We talked about Stuxnet in 2010 happening. Ever since then, Iran has been furious and has been trying to hack into us, building just armies of hackers that, now 15 years later, they're mature adults that are just spending time trying to hack. And then North Korea, right? These guys, they did that, the interview with the Sony hacks just because they were upset. They did, the Lazarus Group is associated with North Korea. They did the Bank of Bangladesh for like close to $100 million in that theft. So they're more looking to try to finance their party. So they're after banks for the most part. Okay. All right, so let's talk about 4 cybercrime groups. The first one, CLOP. These guys, I think they're the worst. Years ago when I started looking into this stuff, it was their site that I found first. I'm going to show you some of the things that they leak. They're tied in with the TA 505, which is a financially motivated cybercrime group that's part of the Russian, neighbor state. They're known for large, big activities. With that Move It vulnerability, they hit 500 businesses, right away with that. Like I said, a lot of it wasn't good information, but some of it was. So yeah, they've been active since early 2019. They're sophisticated, okay, and they hit the high-profile organizations, and they don't care. And I'm going to show you, some of their stuff, in a few minutes here, because they're just bad, right? So this is their site. So this is dark web using a Tor browser. I know the URL, .onion to this. I go there, okay, and these are all businesses, right? DGS, Delphin, Petty, Pilot Pen, Complex Legal. So all of these they've stolen their information. They're going to leak it. But all of these archives up here are they all drop down also to more companies. There's archive. Here's archive 2, right? Stanford.edu, right? This was Miami.edu, Colorado, right? When all those colleges were getting hit a couple years back. Here's some more in here. Lexim, DRC Law, right? It's always great when they get law firms. Okay, Wildfire Defense, right? So these are, and every time I go back, there's a new archive, right? There's a new archive that's available with new businesses that have been compromised. And these guys are so extravagant that they go and they set up, like a torrent site. So you want to download this stuff, and they give you a menu. So these are all businesses that these guys broke into. They stole all of their data, and here's some torrent links to go out and download all of the data for these companies. And this is just the beginning of it, right? Each of those is dropping down, and it just continues to grow, okay? So they're bad news, and they're not going anywhere. They even trace to where they are. They know who they are, and they just can't get them. Nobody is helping in Russia to get these guys. Buy in Line is another group. They came out 2022. They're healthcare, finance, critical infrastructure, our water systems, things like that. They're going after it. They're same double extortion, right? Steal the data and encrypt it at the same time. And they, really focus on the data theft piece of it. So in some cases where they can't get the ransomware deployed because of the tools, they steal the data instead and then just kind of play that game, like that Karakurt group was doing a few years ago. They weren't hitting anybody with ransomware, but they were stealing all of your data and then kind of saying, hey, got your data, now what do you want to do? Let's pay us or we're going to leak it, right? And it was almost as good as being able to, to hit them with ransomware. This is the Buy in Line site from the other day, right? So you can see the Cardiology Associates, Stein Fibers, right? And then, so over here at the top it says, home companies, tags up here. So when I click on companies, this is the partial list that they were putting there. Augusta Orthopedic, Thomas & Davis, CK, Texas Center for Infectious Disease, Bunkhouse Group, Fish, Nelson and Holden. Right, so these are our businesses. So I don't know if these are in upstate New York. I don't know where they are, but they're here in the United States for the most part, right? These are just regular people like us that come into work one day and their life changes, right? And then they have everything encrypted and they got to figure out what they're going to do, okay? The Play Group, these guys also came around in 2022 with their double extortion, saying they're hitting everybody also. But they started getting into ransomware as a service, where now it's like, you know what? We're not going to waste our time breaking into places. If you're good at breaking into places, but you are horrible at ransomware, well, you break in, and we'll give you the ransomware, and we'll split it, right? And these guys will do all the negotiating and all that stuff, and then hopefully pay the 20% or the 40% or whatever to the people that actually broke into the company. Those that we call them initial access brokers, in this. And this is the play site from the other day, right? So Pete's Road Service, and who knows how big Pete's Road Service is, but 369 people have looked at it. What? Who? But somebody, right? And who knows what's out there? It could be tax forms, could be anything, right? So all these companies were hit by play. I don't even know what the dates are. Added 925, yeah, so these are 10-4, right? So this is all the one Reuter. 10-8, right? So this was, like I said, I just made these the other day, okay? Akira, these guys, another 2023 group, same thing with the double extortion. They've in 1 year, they did over 100 organizations. So they're turning and burning. They're earning these guys. They gotta eat, right? Their site is crazy looking. So when you go there, it looks like this. You type the word leaks and it gives you this weird thing you can scroll through. But North Georgia, Brick, and Sigma. I was just scrolling around. I tried to fit two of them in one screen so you could see it was more than one. And my cursor is way down here. So I had to roll up. But Akira, they're out there too. Some other notable groups, Lockbit. Right, these guys were real popular a few months ago because it was a cat and mouse game. We got them, we shut them down, and then the next day, they were right back, and then we got them again, and they're still down, right? So their sites are down, and we had a universal decryption key that we were able to provide back. And I say we, the U.S. government, was able to, to provide that back to people that were hit, right? But you can see over here, some of these companies, Altman Plants and Cotrain, Payroll, right? Doesn't matter. They didn't care, who you were. Vice Society, right? The Cuba ransomware group. This was Karakurt, right? These guys were really only interested in stealing your data, no ransomware. They came from the Conti group, so they would just get in, no ransomware, steal your data, and then you pay or they leak your information, right? So here was some of the ones. Regional Family Medicine, Jefferson County Health, right? River Science Academy, right? So all different types of companies, okay? All right, so now we'll look at some actual leaks, right? Not just the sites. I'm not shaming anybody, with this presentation. I always have a toss-up. Do I show, really just nasty stuff that's just Social Security numbers and things like that? But there's no intent to make the company that this happened to shame them in any way. I have talked to hundreds and hundreds of people that have gone through ransomware attacks. And it's a horror. And nobody ever does say, oh, we didn't have any endpoint protection or, we didn't have firewalls. No, right? Everybody's doing what they can do with what they have, right? With the money that they have, the tools they have. And it happens. Users make mistakes. Things get misconfigured, right? So, I preface that there's absolutely zero shame for these companies that this happened to. Nova Biomedical is in Massachusetts. I'm showing you articles where it's been spoken about, so I'm not exposing somebody that doesn't know, right, that this happened to them, that, that they were a victim, right? I can remember, seeing things years ago and wondering, wow, did this city in California even ever report this? Is there any story out there where this city was hit with ransomware? I'm looking at their data, and there's nothing. Crickets on, nothing. It didn't even happen. No, there was no mention of it. And I'm like, well, did they not disclose it? Do they not know, right? Should I tell them? Should I send them a picture of it? And then what if I send them a picture and they go, you have our data, right? And they come after me and think so it was no, you guys just figure that out. But this was this Nova Biomedical, okay? It was the Klopp Group. This is back 2020. This was put out by the Health Sector Cybersecurity Coordination Center, basically just saying, hey, this Klopp Group is a big, big threat, and here's 3 companies, including Nova Biomedical, that were hit, okay? So this is the Klopp site. So now We just looked at CLOP with all those archives. If you go in archive 1 or 2, Nova Biomedical is in there. And when you click on it, this is what they tell you, right? Their headquarters is in Massachusetts. Their revenue is this. There's their website. And here's the files for download. Oh, and you don't think we have the files? Well, here's the spreadsheet of your employees. I put those bars. Those are my bars to block out this information. Okay, that column is social security numbers, employee's name, last, their birth date, their address. Okay, for every employee, I think it was 120 of them at Nova Bio. This was like the first thing that I saw when I was scrolling down. So it was like, I saw this page, and then as I keep going down, I get to here. I'm like, oh my, and then they have some passports. And I blocked them out, covered their eyes and blocked their names and stuff. But when we got hired, we gave them driver's license. So here it is, right? Then this was an NDA that they put, just letting you know we have all your data. Then they published their insurance. So when I tell you I want $2 million, don't tell me you can't pay me $2 million. Your insurance says you can. We've got it, right? And this is what they're leading with. Jumping back to here, right? This is, there's part 1, part 2, part 3, right? Like there's a lot, it's all of this company's data. And they're pharmaceuticals. So it's all their science data, it's everything, right? Here's another one. This one, I think they were tracking travel expenses and people being out of the office for being sick, okay? Here's another one, just invoices. And this is, again, what they're leaking to just kind of prove like, hey, we got your data, okay? And then you can download the whole set, right? Get the whole set, okay? Now, Cordell and Cordell, okay? These guys were attorneys, lawyers. They still are, yes. They're out of Texas. They got hit, and as you can imagine, and they're divorce lawyers. That's what they do. And all of their stuff was stolen and all leaked to the dark web. And, if you ever had to, have a lawyer, if you ever went through a divorce and had to talk to a lawyer, there's a lot of privilege and confidential information that lawyers have, right? And in this case, Cordell and Cordell, this was a notification to New Hampshire, so saying, hey, somebody in New Hampshire was one of our customers or clients, and we got hit, so they had to report, right? So again, not shaming anybody here. So this is the Alpha V site, okay? So this is their Cordell and Cordell. There's a couple other companies, right? And as I click in, these are all companies that were hit. So up at the top where it says collections, up here, right? This is collections. This is like page 1. Look at how big these are. 260 gigs, 1.2 terabytes. Here's 500 gigs for Cordell, right? All these other best pack, 22 gigs, small company, right? Pick right. So that information's there. I go into Cordell, right? Now I can start seeing, I'm just drilling in, right? And here I did a search. A lot of times when law firms get hit, the bad guys tend to publish the tax return of the owners, the partners of the firm, right? Kind of like, hey, this is out there and this guy made $700,000 last year, and they just always seem to lead with that, right? So I figured, in Cordell. So I did a search. They had a little search engine as I was driving into here, but I searched for tax, right? Tax, just the word tax. And it came back, and look, these guys, they have like a whole entire breadcrumb trail of right here's Cordell and Cordell, and here's, so as I just searched, the word tax. This stuff just started coming back. Like, that's how organized these guys. So you don't want to pay. They want your data to be easily accessible to a bad guy, to anybody that wants to use it, a political opponent, whoever knows, right? Whoever it could be, okay? And then here's the whole entire dump, okay? And some of the mirror sites. So it's, take down one site, it's still going to be out there, at another site, okay? Preferred home care, okay? Bunch of people affected there. This was the Our Evil group. They did Colonial Pipeline, they did JBS, they did Kaseya, right, that 0 day. So preferred home care, we did catch them, we did shut this down, and they got a guy, right? It was a Ukrainian guy that they caught and sentenced him to jail. Over $700 million across 2,500 ransomware attacks this guy made. So they're not, they're ballers, right? They're not playing games over there, right? And here's some of the information that they started publishing, right? So here, just a permanent residence card, right? A whole entire file structure. I did blank out some stuff that was, personally identifiable, but it's like they're sitting on their server. They went to their server, the root drive, and they just copy and pasted, X-copied everything out, okay? Chuck E. Cheese, this was part of that CLOP. These guys got hit, same CLOP group, same that Move It vulnerability. And here's just a bunch, of their information, okay? This was a school that got hit, and this, I show this because this is a Title IX investigation for a student. After the word pupil services, it says like Tim Smith. Somebody's name is there, and this is that's their title, whatever Title IX. I'm sure it's not good. I'm sure Tim or whoever it is did something that got written up. Here's another one, Asia Pacific University. Like these are all driver's license and things like that these guys are just posting to let you know that they have it. Grubman Shire, these were the attorneys of the stars. So here they had Lady Gaga's data, they had Jessica Simpson's data, right? And this, they weren't just leaking it, you had to buy it. But it was only $400. You want Jessica Simpson divorce file, $400. Right? You want Springsteen's file, $400, right? Didn't matter if it was 2 files or 800 files. $400 for everything. So what can you do? Be prepared, have a plan, be ready to execute, okay? Follow a framework if you're not sure. Geez, I don't want this to happen to me. What should I do? And I don't even know where to start. Well, talk to somebody, but follow a framework like the NIST, the CSF, okay? Continue to execute the basics, right? You've got to do your MFA, your patching, your backups, change control, password management, make sure your Wi-Fi is secure, your DNS secure, all the stuff that we're hopefully already doing or at least working towards doing, your DLP, your endpoint protection, right? User encryption, user privilege, privilege of least principal, right? All that stuff, make sure that you're looking at it. Assess your exposure, right? Know yourself is to know the enemy, right? Do your vulnerability tests, do your pen tests, do your risk assessments and your gap, and know where you're weak. If you know where you're weak, you know where you can shore up, you know where you can harden, okay? So test yourself, and not everybody has the same risks. Different businesses have different risks, and places have different risk appetites, okay? So identify that stuff, okay? Minimize the attack surface, monitor and alert 24/7, train your users, okay? Create and test an IR plan, right? Don't wait, store it somewhere else. Don't keep it on your servers, right? Because then ransomware on all your servers, and well, my IR plan is right there on this one. It's not good, okay? Zero trust, right? Share and collaborate, do these kinds of things. Get out, talk to people. It's tough, right? Because there is an element of shame, if you do get hit, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. But when people talk about it, it becomes very powerful and it helps us all to not hopefully, be the victim of the same type of thing, okay? So I was going to finish up just talking about the NIST framework, but we're out of time. So you come by the booth and we can talk about it. But point of the NIST framework is, listen, if you don't have any idea where to start or what you should be doing, this framework just kind of provides this list. It provides a list of things you can do, things you should be doing, things to think about. Okay? But any questions or anything? No? All right, it's lunchtime now. So, thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. What a great talk. We have a certificate and a gift card for you as a thank you. Reminder, everybody, lunch is upstairs. We'll see you back at 1. Thanks.